southbound flight, going miles before night, pushed by the norther to the Gulf Coast border. Colors come to life in the morning light. Wings fill the air, and with luck we'll be there. The skies will be scanned, autumn's at hand. Man and his son in a blind having fun. Hearts soar within when we score a win.
Listen to the heartbeat of America. Listen to the heartbeat of America.
Listen to the heartbeat of America. Listen to the heartbeat of America. Yeah. It's the season in the air, the color of open space. Mountain lake, magic place, feel the heartbeat of America.
When your heart beats for the great outdoors, see your Chevy dealer, where you'll find over 90 different ways to enjoy it all.
Oh, the heartbeat of America. Chevrolet. That's today's Chevy truck.
Welcome to the Sportsman's Workshop, brought to you by the Heartbeat of America, today's Chevy truck.
Soar within when we score a win.
This is your host, Jay Warburton, inviting you to join me for another exciting film in the Sportsman's Workshop Video Library series. We are going to venture to the marshlands of southern Texas and join my good friend Bob Brister as he explains to us his secrets for duck hunting success.
Coast border.
The Central Flyway, Texas being at the end of it, winters about 70% of the ducks that come and the geese that come down the Central Flyway, so this is an excellent place for them to be. This is estuarine habitat. It is the edge of the freshwater marsh meeting the saltwater marsh. Very rich in nutrients, very rich in natural duck food. This band of marsh starts at the Louisiana border and runs all the way to Galveston Bay, which is good because it's some of the finest wetland habitat in America. You know, nowadays, you can carry about 2 to 4 dozen decoys in one of these bags. In fact, there are double bags that carry 4 dozen. Still don't weight you down, and the more the merrier as far as decoys are concerned. It's very important that you have a lot of decoys. And with a couple of guys hunting, you can carry as many as 8 dozen, obviously. This particular bag here carries 2 dozen, and there are almost as many decoys as there are ways to hunt with them. The types of decoys all have specific purposes, specific advantages and disadvantages. And although they may look the same to the average guy, they don't work that way in the water. This particular decoy, of course, is a pintail drake. And to many people, one pintail drake is the same as any other. This one behaves a little differently in the water because it has what is called a water keel, in that water runs into this open area here and helps keep the decoy from rolling or shaking too much from the side in the wind. It is, you will notice, rigged with a weight over the bill, and this is the way I prefer to rig mine to keep them from tangling up. This happens to be called a big scoop weight. You just simply wrap the decoy with the line tied here. When you want to wrap the decoy, you do this, come around his head, and the pressure of this little neoprene stretch cord causes the weight to go over the bill. That keeps it from tangling up while you're carrying it around. It's very important. I think it's very convenient. This is a mallard drake, obviously, but again, it's an entirely different decoy because this is a weighted keel decoy. There is a silicon sand weight inside here that makes the decoy even more stable than the water keel. These decoys weigh a tiny bit more, and they're more advantageous if you're using them on an open area where there's a lot of wave action. It doesn't make much difference what type keel a decoy has in calm water, but if the waves are high and the wind is blowing, then it makes a great deal of difference because some of the decoys will roll and pitch unnaturally, and the ducks can perceive that. This is probably the silliest looking decoy of them all. It's just a little rubber duck. But I've killed many a limit of mallards using simple collapsible rubber decoys. The main reason is you can carry 4 or 5 dozen of them in your pockets if you have to, or in your hunting bag. They don't weigh very much. They don't take up much room. They self-inflate when you drop them on the water. And as we will learn as we hunt ducks long enough, ducks do not know really that much difference between the way a decoy looks sometimes as we think they do. I have decoyed ducks to nothing but tin cans painted brown and white. Ducks are not really as perceptive in some respects as we seem to think they are. Sometimes they are, but nevertheless, this type of decoy in certain conditions will work, mainly because it is so lightweight, it will move with the slightest breeze. Now, there are new mechanical decoys now, which are extremely clever. On a still day, when a regular decoy is not moving at all, it looks dead, and ducks learn that. They learn that if there's no movement, these are probably dummy ducks. But if they see movement, it encourages them to believe these ducks are alive. And the slightest ripple will help make them believe this. This decoy is designed, it's called a flutterer. It's made by the Canvasback Company that manufactures some mechanical decoys in Tennessee. Has a little switch right under the bill. When you turn this on, it starts to vibrate. And it throws out the vibrations that cause ripples. We'll show you that on the water in just a moment. This is exactly the same thing from the standpoint of the vibrations, except this represents the north end of a southbound duck. When ducks are feeding, puddle ducks and mallards, pintails are feeding, they very often tip up, showing only their tail. And they're feeding on bottom or near bottom, on vegetation or whatever. A feeder like this that is shaking or vibrating means a lot to a duck. It means it looks realistic to him. And that's why they designed this decoy in this way. Then there is another device which is perhaps even deadlier. This little jewel has a propeller. It's powered by 2 D-cell batteries going in the back here. The little propeller sends the duck around and around. You just put him out like you would any other decoy. Got a weight here. You can throw him out in the water just as you would any other decoy. But when you flip his switch, he starts to swim. Goes around and around the weight or whatever the wind and the decoy want to do. But duck passes over and sees that, he is very subject to believing it. And I don't know really if these things should be fair or not, but they do work in calm weather, in timber, anywhere there is not very much wind to make the decoys move on their own. This is an absolutely ridiculous decoy to look at because no pintail drake was ever this big. This is the size, approximate size of a normal pintail drake or a normal pintail decoy. Yet, ducks apparently lack perception of size. And this decoy, being so large, has remarkable visibility from the air. Ducks will come to it, and very often, if you put out magnum size or super magnum size, as this is called, alongside ordinary size decoys, the ducks will try to land with the oversized decoys. Maybe they just like to have big friends. But the main thing is, I think, visibility and the fact that the ducks are not nearly so smart as we think they are about what they see. That's the reason that geese will decoy to goose decoys the size of a Volkswagen, and that's been proven. These decoys here are just big, they're heavy, and the only thing wrong with, I would say, use all magnum decoys if you can afford them. They're expensive. But the other thing is you can't carry very many of them. They're heavy, and they occupy a lot of space in a sack. Therefore, if I had my choice between a lot of numbers of ordinary decoys and a few of the big magnums, I would probably choose numbers if I were hunting pintails, widgeon, or ducks of that sort that raft up in great big rafts. And if I were hunting mallards in some small pothole where ducks normally are only there in 12 or 15 or 20 or 30 numbers, then I would use the big ones. If I was going to have a permanent blind set up where I could leave my decoys out as some guides do, I would have as many magnums as I could because they're that much easier to see. Now then, we'll go down to the water and show you how these things actually work. This is that reel decoy with the propeller and a switch, and this duck swims at the length of a tether cord. As soon as it hits the end of this thing, it will change direction and swim in circles. It'll even work to some extent in vegetation. Let me show you how it works. Let's just say you threw it out there, turn it loose, it takes off on its own power. When it hits the end of that tether, it changes direction. And it will just continue to swim. Now it's in weeds, but it's still operating. If the prop hits something, it doesn't hurt anything. It just automatically stops. It doesn't shear a pin like an outboard motor. It puts up ripples. This one is called the reel decoy, and it is real McCoy as far as killing ducks. And it'll run about a hunting day on those two D-cell batteries. If it doesn't, there's no problem because you just flip it off. And right here is the battery compartment, which is you just raise it up and change two batteries in about 5 seconds. And that's all there is to that. You only need one or two of them in a whole spread of decoys to make the whole rest of the decoys come alive. I think it's a wonderful invention. Here's a little thing that a lot of people don't know about, but it's worth its weight in gold on a cold morning, and that's a decoy glove. Keeps your arm and sleeve dry when you're handling decoys. You can feel through the stuff. It's nothing in the world but lightweight plastic. Sometimes you don't need to use but one. Use two if you like. They're inexpensive, and believe me, they will save some very cold hands. They'll go on over your gloves, depending, of course, on what size you buy. But they're a very simple device, and I highly recommend them for anyone hunting in a cold climate. This is a rubber decoy, often called DECOYS, and then various generic names for them, made out of lightweight latex rubber. They come in different types and brands. This particular one, you just drop on the water, and it traps enough air to self-inflate. One of the advantages of it is that it will move with a very, very light breeze. It's constantly turning around. Even when a normal decoy would not be moving because it's so light. They'll swim real well. Right here he's in a little vegetation. That doesn't look much like a duck. Yet at a distance, it does. It looks enough like a duck that I have killed a lot of mallards in small potholes in the marsh and in the timber, using a few of those in with my regular decoys. The main reason is I couldn't carry enough regular decoys to suit me, so I can carry a lot of these, and I supplement my regular decoys with these sometimes if I think it's necessary. You get through with it, just pick it up. It weighs practically nothing. I've got a pretty long line on this one because I was hunting in some deep, dark timber, very deep timber. Put the weight in there, and you can wad it up in your hunting sack most any way you want to. This has a simple little vibrating machine in it, just a little off-center weight, and look at him vibrate. He's putting up waves about a ½ an inch high. He looks as if his legs are paddling. That's the way sort of the way a duck throws out waves when it's moving. You put one of these in with another bunch of decoys, and the waves that he throws out make the others seem to come alive. From the air, a duck looking down and seeing the ripples that are put off by that thing is very likely to decoy because he thinks that something's alive down there. This is also a fluttering decoy, or a flutterer, as the canvasback people call them. It also works with a simple switch and a couple of pinlight batteries. It's different in that it represents just the tail of a duck when the duck is feeding on bottom. Mallards and pintails very often feed with their head under the water, and as they do so, they create ripples. This is a very normal situation for a duck passing over to see some of the ducks on the water with nothing but their tail sticking up. And that's what this represents, and it looks very realistic in action. This duck tail looks for all the world from the air like a duck turned upside down feeding. They have a lot of use, particularly in calm water situations. That's when they really shine. When you're putting out your decoys, you don't have to worry so much about how far apart to put them, any particular formation. You can read all you want to about that sort of thing. My opinion is that ducks do not evenly space themselves 3 feet apart or 2 feet apart. They're very often in little groups, little bunches, 5 or 6, 10 or 20, and then a gap and some more. I don't worry all that much about it. The main thing to worry about is to make sure that the decoy line is not wrapped around the neck of the decoy, that the decoy can swim normally, and that he's in the place that the ducks normally want to go. I'm putting these decoys right now in the lee of a shore where it's relatively calm water. I'm going to spread them out over this whole area out here. Right now, this decoy is rigged with monofilament line rather than the usual braided line. The reason for that is that sometimes I hunt with other people, and if I want to keep my decoys separate, all I got to do is rig them with monofilament, and nobody else that I know does that. So if I pick up a decoy and it has the monofilament on it, all right. Now, if the decoy doesn't turn over right, don't worry about it. You just walk over there and straighten him up. A lot of decoys will self-right themselves almost any way you throw them. Most of the time they will. I just think that the simplest way to do it is the fastest way as far as you're concerned, because your trick is to get your decoys out, get them in the right place. If they're not working the way they are, move them. Move them somewhere else. The most important thing about placement of decoys is that they look something like you have seen ducks look in that area before. Now you see, if I didn't pick this decoy up, it was neck wrapped. A duck can't see very much. They can't see very clearly, we'll say, as to the specific nature of a decoy. You can paint one the wrong color and they'll still come to it. You can paint these decoys brown and a lot of ducks will come to them anyway because there are objects on the water that look like ducks. But they can see a line wrapped around a neck or light-colored line. The common twine that you can buy is very easy to come by, but do not use it because a duck in clear water can look down and see that line. The best decoy line that I know of is tangle-free. And that's one word, just like it sounds, tangle-free. That stuff is tough, it lasts a long time, it's expensive, it doesn't tangle up very often. And the most important advantage to a big spread of decoys is that it resembles some sort of refuge or safe place. Ducks nowadays are not the same ducks we hunted 30, 40 years ago. They spend their whole migrational life in national refuges or following big concentrations, or at least most ducks do. And as a result of that, they equate numbers with safety. And they lose a lot of their natural caution when they see a lot of decoys. It is very dangerous for a duck to decoy to a little blind that has just 2 or 3 or 4 dozen decoys out, because he sees a little spread of decoys like that all the way from the Canadian border to Mexico. He sees the same thing. Most hunters are hunting with about the same number of decoys. If those hunters would pool their decoys and hunt over one big spread, they might be surprised at the difference. That is, if the ducks want to be there. The most important thing, I have to repeat it so many times, is being where the duck wants to go. You can have a lot of decoys, you can have the right kind of decoys, you can have perfect calling. But if the duck doesn't want to go there, then you're going to have a tough time making him go there. And the way to know where he wants to go is to do a lot of scouting, to locate the particular spot in a marsh or a rice field or a cornfield, wherever you're hunting. Locate the specific spot those ducks have been using and get as close as you can to it, and make your decoys look as much as you can as the natural birds look. There are a few tricks, however. In a very large spread like this, you can arrange them so that there are openings down through the decoys from each direction, sort of like a runway effect, so that from any wind direction, the duck has a way to approach over a little open water lane. It doesn't have to be very large, and it won't really be obvious if you look out through the decoys. A lot of hunters put simply a great big spread of decoys on one side of the blind, a great big spread on the other side of the blind, and leave an open hole in the middle, which they call the death hole. Obviously, it's easier for a duck to come in and land in that open water. The one that does work with diving ducks. Diving ducks fly lower than the mallards or pintails and widgeon and so forth. The redheads, scaup, canvasbacks and so forth generally tend to fly relatively low to the water. You can put a long sort of a tail on a decoy spread, and you want to put it perpendicular to the flight of the birds, the direction you think the birds are coming from. They might miss the side of your big decoy spread, but if they encounter the tail of this spread projecting from your decoys, they will turn at that and come right into your main spread, see it, and cup their wings and decoy. It's just a means of spreading out the effect of your decoys. As long as you have enough decoys, and as long as they are close enough to the blind that you know those birds are in range into those decoys, numbers is a lot more important than how they're set. There's about as many ways of calling ducks as there are places to hunt ducks. But I want to show you some calls and some types of calls, starting with the order in which I would blow if I saw some ducks at a distance. Now, you have probably heard, this is a very loud call right here, called the Paul Kingdon call. It's a custom call made in Iowa, and it's a double reed call, and I believe a double reed call is a little easier for me to control than the single reed. A good contest caller, most of them call with single reed calls, so it really, that part doesn't matter. Okay, you've got a call here that is capable of reaching a long distance and turning a duck to you, and that is the very first and most important step, is to turn the duck and let the duck know that you're there, or that he thinks another duck is there, or that your decoys are real. Now, you very often hear the highball call on the calling records and so forth going something like this. those repeated high notes, no duck ever did that. You never heard a mallard hen in her life do that. All those high notes are for is because the duck's ear can pick up a high pitch much farther than it can pick up a low pitch. Okay? So if you make a number of high-pitched sounds, the odds are better those ducks are going to be able to hear it. I frankly don't use the multiple high-pitched tone very often because I think ducks are afraid of it. They've heard so many good callers all up and down the line from Canada to where I live here in Texas, that they get pretty smart about that. What I normally do when I see some distant ducks is I'll try to blow something as a distant duck would blow to them. I'll say, now those are just sounds, just high sounds to get the duck's attention. When the duck starts to work a little bit closer, I'm going to be a lot more careful about what I say to him. And I may still use this loud call because he's still going to get a good earful of it and he's going to be able to pick it up. But I would give him a little exciting call that I would call a recognition call or greeting call. The duck just blows. Just something like that, just to let the ducks going to come. And then the ducks start to turn and go away. I get more excited. Or I may plead with them. Okay, these are you look at a bunch of ducks and you see what works. Very often that little fast call will work. Okay, maybe that works. Whatever works, whatever seems to get their attention and turn the duck, that's what you want to stick with. As they get closer to me, I'll switch very often to a different type of call. Now, the one reason for that is I would like for those ducks to think there are several hens calling rather than just one. This little call is a clear plastic call, a double reed call. It's easy to control like a double reed call. It's made in Louisiana by my friend Eli Haydell. And it's the first of the little calls like this I've ever seen, and I really do like it. It does just about a little of everything. But this particular one is tuned to squeal or to cry at the end of some of the notes, as a young mallard hen does, or a young duck does sometimes, or even an old duck. When they're trying real hard to get attention, their voice will break over and have a little cry to it. Well, that means that duck is really trying to get attention. Now, right then I blew it too hard and it stuck. But that is all right. If you're blowing a call and something like that happens, it squeaks or squawks, keep right on calling that what you were trying to do, because ducks make all kinds of mistakes. No duck could ever win a duck calling contest, I can assure you that. They make some of the worst sounds in the world. Now this call here has a nice little low raspy quack and pretty good feed call. Now, while I'm on the feed call, I want to tell you this. Everybody in the world is so proud of the fact that he has learned to say ducka, 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 and make something that sounds fancy. Okay, that's okay, but you don't hear ducks doing that very much. And I think the ducks hear hunters doing that. You hear a ducks doing that maybe flying over, and you hear ducks doing that in a great big concentration of feeding birds. But really, if like most people are hunting with 2 or 3 dozen decoys or 5 dozen, if you go up to that many ducks and listen to them, most of them are making sounds more like this. In other words, they're clucking. It's not this clear cut. That scares ducks. I think it scares them anyway, because I've hunted in the blind with a lot of people. I had to make stop doing that so we could get some ducks in close to make pictures of them. If you tried to blow a call, let's say this little call here, and you blew it as you would blow a little tin toy whistle, you'd say, That's what it sounds like. That's all there is there. You can blow it harder, it's a... Okay. But if you blow from your diaphragm, move the air up, and you say into the call the word or the letter K, or Kate, or kick, something that creates the K sound. If you feel your belly when you say that, you say K, and you feel your belly contract. That's your diaphragm contracting and forcing air out. So I'm saying into this call, when I make the sound of a quack, I'm saying K, 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 which is a whole lot different than... That's the difference in learning to blow a duck call. A duck actually makes only a few basic sounds, and the basic sound of the duck is a down progression when the duck is trying to call another duck, trying to get attention, or just sitting there and quacking. It'll always be a down progression in tone. Doesn't make a difference what duck call you blow it with. Okay, these calls sound differently. Every one of them have a different sound. But you're making the same down progression of notes. And if you can learn first the quack, and then you learn to make a high quack, and then the next one down is a little, not quite so high, and then the third one is low, and then you got, if you can make those three notes, you can call a duck. Now certainly a duck will continue to call, and the duck will say, sometimes they'll make a number of calls. You may want a high-pitched call, in which I use high-pitched calls most of the time because they can be heard farther. Here's a little high-pitched hay-dale. But if you notice, there is that same progression of sounds down, and that is duck language. That's the way we make sounds in English that say cat in English different than the way they say cat in Chinese, or gato in Spanish. Okay, ducks have certain ways of making their sounds, and whenever you get those basic sounds down, then you can call ducks if you don't call at the wrong time. The different sounds, these are all mallard sounds. Most ducks, if they are feeding with mallards or around mallards, will make they make sounds similar to a mallard in that a pintail hen, for example, will make a little fast quack. Sometimes. Mostly they whistle. But almost all ducks will, to some extent, work to mallards' calls if they are with mallards. If you are on a saltwater bay or a rice field where there are practically no mallards, and you do not want to be on a quacking duck call because they're not used to that and it can scare them. But if you're where mallards are, you want to use I think the quacking duck call helps a whole lot. One of the most common reasons for not killing ducks is that the hunter cannot be still, and that's hard to do. You look up at the ducks, it's natural to do that. You can't tell where they are unless you do look up. And if you do look up, your face is going to flash a white signal to them. You can use face paint to dull your face, or you can use a face mask. A lot of hunters are starting to use these face masks, which are just a little thin mesh, got a little retaining band to hold it on your head. This knocks the shine off your face. You can still see through it, even with eyeglasses, because you got a hole here for your eyeglasses. This makes it possible for the person to look up at the ducks, which helps in calling the ducks to see what they're doing, and without scaring them. And I can assure you that if everybody wore one of these, and every blind in America for one whole season, probably the kill on ducks would go up 10%. There's that, or maybe 15, because there are that many ducks that are frightened off because somebody looks up at the last minute or glances up and there the ducks are. Maybe the guy doesn't even know the duck's coming. He turns around and there's the duck. The duck by that time has seen him. He's seen the movement, but he's seen the flash of that face. This knocks a lot of that out, and a lot of the smarter guides are asking to use these. Also, that makes a pretty darn good mosquito bar if you're in the marsh and the mosquitoes are bad. Okay, when I'm trying to call these distant ducks, I see them on the horizon way over here, maybe I don't even blow at the really distant ducks because they can't hear it. But if I think one is within range, such as that bunch right over there, they're a little bit too far, but I'm going to give them a very long hail call. Okay, they just didn't hear that. They were just too far. But the reason for those repeated high notes, no duck ever calls like that. The duck can only hear the highest note in the spectrum of sound that you make on a call, and the repeat high notes maybe at a distance increases the odds the ducks can hear it, and it also maybe makes them think that several different hens are making that high note, but no one duck sounds like that. And I would never blow that call at a duck up close. Okay, now this high duck here, I'm going to try to give him just the normal calling routine. Okay. There's a couple way over there. I'm going to try to give them a high ball, see if I can turn them. Okay, got him turned. Of these low blinds, these pit-type blinds, is that they don't stick up above the horizon, much more natural. You're down here, and if you use these blinds properly, for instance, when ducks are overhead, you lean forward to cover up this dark hole that the blind would otherwise present. You can look through this vegetation here and see the ducks just fine. You do not want to look up. Because your face shines, and so you look at the ducks out of the top of your eyes, try to be as still as possible, and lean forward as close as you can to this vegetation. The closer you get to it, the better you can see through it, and the harder it is for the duck to see down into here. And when you're blowing the duck call, you don't want to blow it down into this blind because the echo will reverberate and sound as if you're blowing into a barrel, which you are. But, well, there's a duck right now. All right, I'm gonna try to give him a high ball. Just let up on him a little bit, okay? I'm gonna give him now just a duck here. Going around, I'm going to get a little comeback call. See if I can get him to come back around one more time. I've changed calls to this little squealing call. Okay, I'm making him think there's several hens calling to different voices. Okay, there he is. That is a dead duck. One of the important things is to have the gun in such a position that you don't have to make any real big movements to get to the gun where the ducks can see you, because when the ducks are very close, they're the most suspicious. So you want to have, in this case, I have this over and under, which is quite handy to use, and I have it just where all I have to do is touch it. For example, okay, there's a couple of ducks. I'm gonna first highball call, see if I can get their attention. The most important thing in choosing a shotgun shell and a choke combination is to consider that they must be a combination. The tighter the choke you use, the more difficult it is to hit with, the more difficult it is to center the bird in the pattern. And also, the larger shot you can use, because with a tighter pattern, the large shot will still fill in the pattern well. If you use, for example, a very open choke like an improved cylinder, and you use a very large shot in lead shot like 2s, then you wouldn't have enough pellets to fill in the pattern. But with steel shot, it's an entirely different situation. Steel shot are required in many areas now for waterfowl hunting, and the largest single mistake that hunters make is not realizing that a steel pellet must be larger than the lead pellet you were accustomed to using. I shoot ducks with number 2 steel because in pellet weight and in pellet numbers is about the same as the number 4 lead. It also happens to work very well. All right.
My dad and I have owned Ford trucks for as long as I can remember. If somebody had told me 3 months ago that I'd be driving a Chevy truck, well, I wouldn't have believed them. Well, I took a look at the new Chevy truck, and they've totally redesigned the truck. And test drove it. That was enough to sell me on it. It's got the Vortex V6. It's got plenty of power. They've had tough competition from Ford, and they've beat them.
The heartbeat of America, that's today's Chevy truck.
Chevrolet's done their homework on this truck.
Season begins, air chills the skin, heart sore within when we score a win. Southbound flight, going miles before night, by the norther to the Gulf Coast border, pushed by the norther to the Gulf Coast border.
Hi, my name is Jay Warburton, and I would like to invite you to enjoy other titles in the Sportsman's Workshop Video Library series. Babe Winkleman covers it all in how to catch walleyes: crankbaits, spinners, jigs, soft plastic lures, and live bait techniques. This video will assure you more consistent success in your fishing for walleye. The country's foremost big game guide, Dick Ray, takes professional outdoorsman Roger Moore on the hunt of a lifetime. These tips presented in How to Hunt the Majestic Elk will let you join the 20% of the hunters who take 80% of the trophies. In Decoys and Duck Calls, best-selling author Bob Brister will show you the secrets of using decoys and duck calls, adapting to weather and temperature conditions, proper gun selection, shell and shot size selection, and dozens of other secrets for duck hunting success. In How to Hunt Black Bears, you will join Roger Moore and Dick Ray as they seek out their trophy in the golden-covered slopes of the New Mexico Rockies during early fall. Using horses and hounds, you will learn Dick Ray's secrets for success as they bag a big boar. In Kids Plus Fishing Equals Fun, your family will learn all the basics as pros Roger Moore and Gary Klein take over 25 youngsters through the basics of casting, tying knots, rigging and baiting the hook and line, selecting and use of lures, and much, much more. Under the narrative expertise of Kurt Gowdy, you will enjoy the finest wildlife photography ever put on film. How to Hunt North American Big Game takes you into the homelands of grizzly bears, Alaskan moose, mountain lions, Dall sheep, mule deer, white-tailed deer, elk, and many other big game animals. In How to Hunt Wild Turkeys, author and wildlife biologist J. Wayne Fears will introduce you to secrets to guarantee your hunting success. He'll show you the best turkey calls and how and when to use them, how to hunt in different kinds of turkey habitat, shotgun choice, and other necessary equipment you'll need. In Secrets for Catching Walleye, Babe Winkleman takes you even further into his secret world for consistently catching walleyes, covering new ways to rig live baits, work spinners, crankbaits, and soft plastic lures. In Introduction to Muzzleloading, Dick Gassaway takes you through the basics of black powder, including the fundamentals of loading and shooting black powder guns and the necessary equipment and accessories to get you started in this exciting sport. It's true, 10% of the bass fishermen catch 90% of the bass. In How to Catch Bass, professional bass fisherman Roger Moore takes you through an extensive crash course in fishing for lunker bass. Learn the secrets of John Wooters, a leading authority on white-tailed deer. He'll show you how to locate productive areas, stalking techniques, how to read buck rubs, horn rattling, bullet placement, and more in How to Hunt the White-tailed Deer. Archery Tactics for Deer presents the experience of America's most widely published bow hunting author, Chuck Adams, as he takes you through the fundamentals of equipment selection, proper clothing, when to hunt, where to hunt, tree stands and ground blinds, ambush strategy, stalking and still hunting, and many other tips for hunting success. Professional trout fisherman Rex Gerlach shows you all the secrets of successful trout fishing in How to Catch Trout, whether pursuing rainbows in the Rocky Mountain stream or working a brook trout in some secluded northeast stream. Rex Gerlach's secrets will help you become a better fisherman. Bass Tactics That Work takes you fishing with bass champion Larry Nixon. Larry gives you his secrets for success on every aspect of the sport, including lure and bait selection, casting techniques, and tips on where and how to catch bass. How to use soft plastic lures. 4 famed anglers share fishing tips and preferences demonstrating how to use a wide variety of soft plastic lures. These pros share pointers on proper lure selection for walleye, bass, trout, striper, and panfish as they fish the Poudre River and the lakes of the Colorado Rockies. New titles will be continuously added to the Sportsman's Workshop Video Library series. Please ask your dealer about what topics are available.